Hello, and welcome to I'm Sick Not Crazy, the podcast that helps you to take control of your own health and healing. My name is Jennifer James, and I'm a licensed and practicing psychotherapist, here to talk about becoming your healthiest self, both physically and psychologically. Hello, and welcome to I'm Sick Not Crazy with Jennifer James, MFT, the podcast where we help you learn to take control of your own healing. Today I'm doing an interview with Heather Fenwick, who I met as my yoga instructor and then later became a client for her acupuncture and Chinese medicine work. And so I have her on here today to talk about the alternative treatment that she does with acupuncture and Chinese medicine. Heather, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Heather. Thank you so much for having me on here. I feel very humbled and flattered and honored. I'm just a yoga instructor and an acupuncturist and, just a seeker in this world, trying to do my best like everyone else. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for coming. All right. So tell us a little bit about the work that you do in acupuncture. How does it work?
How does acupuncture work? It's $1 million question. And I mean, they have done a lot of study on the like neurons and electricity that are released. Basically, the needles are inserted in a spot that has a little more conductivity to the brain, and there's nothing in the needles. So it's just like a little signal that says to the brain, hey, we need a little more help over here. And there are certain times where there's too much stagnation, we call it in Chinese medicine, but that's like a stuckness or a tightness of a muscle is a stagnation, for example. And oftentimes the needle in that point will just say, hey, release the stagnation. Things need to flow through here. In other cases, we would call deficiency, where there's not enough qi, not enough energy, not enough blood flow in Western medical terms. Mm-hmm. And the needle in that point would say, hey, we need a little bit more neuron firing. We need a little bit more circulation to this area. And in our medicine, we call that, we need more qi and blood to this area. Okay. So there's either too much of something, a stagnation, or an excess, in which case we want to disperse and allow for a more free flow. Or oftentimes there's a deficiency, a lack, and in those cases the needle is there to say, hey, we need more over here. And the brain figures it out. Your body is healing itself. It's a really, really crazy to wrap your head around everything that your brain can do, but the needles are just there to sort of like tap the brain on the shoulder and be like, excuse me, brain, over here. We just need a little bit of help over here. And then the brain has this infinite organizing power to just figure it out and fix it. Your body just fixes itself.
So fascinating.
So, I know, it's great. I still am bewildered by it myself.
Are you?
Yeah.
So
it's hard to think it's not magic, you know?
Yeah. So it sounds like it's about getting energy to flow to the area that needs the help. Mm-hmm. Either getting the energy unstuck and flowing away, or getting the energy to flow to the area.
Yeah, exactly. And just like any Eastern philosophy, yoga, it's about balance. It's just about creating balance in the body. If there's too much here, we need less. If there's not enough here, we need more.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay. Thank you. How did you decide to get involved in doing this type of work?
So yoga, I would say, is the thing that pulled me down this path. So I started practicing yoga in 2001, and I took my first yoga teacher training in 2005. I had to drive up to Orange County every weekend because there were no teacher trainings in San Diego, which is just laughable now.
Wow.
And around that time, I was working in an office job with some really lovely people, and I just was increasingly unsatisfied. So I quit my job and went to India on a one-way ticket in 2006, and I traveled there by myself for 10 months.
Oh, wonderful.
It was, looking back, it was a little bit insane, my poor parents. But it was obviously the best and most transformative year of my life.
Yeah.
And I went there with the idea that I would study yoga, and it was very difficult to find yoga studios like we have here. But I also wanted to study Ayurveda, which is the sister science to yoga, the Indian system of holistic medicine. And I did dip a toe in that. So I started studying Ayurveda. I was really fortunate to meet an Ayurvedic doctor at the yoga ashram where I was, and he invited me to stay in his family's home, and his dad was an Ayurvedic doctor, grandfather Ayurvedic doctor. They had an Ayurvedic pharmacy in the backyard, and I got to study with him one-on-one for like a 10-day course, which was amazing.
Yes.
And I did a couple of other Ayurvedic courses while I was there, but it wasn't resonating for me. I wasn't like, oh, this isn't actually what I want to do with my whole life. So I went to Thailand and I did some Thai massage there, and I liked that a little bit better. They call that lazy man's exercise because, you're like moving the body and getting the blood to flow, but you just get to lie down while somebody stretches you.
That sounds amazing.
So then I came back to the United States and I wanted to practice Thai massage, but I couldn't because I didn't have a license. So I ended up going to PCOM to get my massage license, Pacific College of Oriental Medicine here in San Diego. And during that time, I sustained a wrist injury because I don't know if you know that massage therapists have an average career lifespan of something like 7 years.
Okay.
Because it's manual labor.
Right.
And so they get injured. I'm like 5'2" and a $108, so I'm not built to be doing manual labor. Anyway, I got a wrist injury, and at that time I was going to a school where I was getting acupuncture.
Okay.
And it helped me with a lot of issues. I hadn't had a period for 11 months, which signals an imbalance underneath. Sure. So they got me on a regular, menstruation schedule. And then I was like, there's really something to this. In addition to the stress reduction, in addition to this pain that I had in my shoulder for 20 years, that's gone after 10 treatments. And I was just like, if massage is such a limited modality as far as how long you can do it, acupuncture, I can see myself doing that into my 90s.
Perfect.
So that's how yoga to Ayurveda to Thai massage to acupuncture.
Kind of a journey towards finding the thing that fit for you.
Yeah. And that's like how you travel too. If you ever go on a really long open-ended trip, you just kind of sniff out one spot and then another spot and you wade through and see what feels good. And that's, I think, how I took my whole entire life journey actually is kind of how I do that. But definitely that's what landed me as an acupuncturist.
Nice. Yeah. How long have you been an acupuncturist now?
How long has it been? It's maybe 5 years, 4 or 5 years. But I was practicing at school for 4 years before that, because I took the long road at school. So I've been actually, needling for around 8 years.
Okay. It's a good long time.
Yeah, it's feeling very natural.
Good. Yeah. Lots of practice. Yeah. Okay. And what do you think is the best part about doing acupuncture, the best part about your work?
Yeah, when you say that, I feel this like a warmth in the center of my heart because I love everything about acupuncture. I love being able to help people, and I love being able to help people in such a healthy way, right? Because I mean, if somebody, when I was younger and I had a friend who was sad, I would bring them a brownie, right? Like that's
So
just, this
sweet.
is my comfort for you.
Yes.
But obviously that eventually can become problematic. And it's really nice to have this thing that can help with so many different things in a really, really healthy way all around. It's really nice to see people coming into my office with suffering.
Yes.
Whether that is physical or emotional or energetic, and to see the little snapshot of the person before and after the treatment is such a beautiful thing to be able to facilitate in the world. So I get to do that as my job. The fact that the medicine is so portable as well. I just, okay, I have 10 needles and I go on a trip and, you got a headache. Okay, I can help with that. Heat stroke. Okay. Cramps, anxiety, insomnia. Like I can just, any of those things. It's so versatile and portable and really, really effective for so many things.
Yes. That's wonderful because not only are you able to treat physical ailments, but you're also able to treat emotional ailments. So
Big
it's
time.
really something that can treat anything that somebody's struggling with.
Right. And in any holistic medicine, you can see, and I know your work as a therapist, you can see that the physical and the emotional can't be separated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you see that all the time.
Yeah, and therapy is really moving towards physical ways that we can move trauma and move emotion. So it's definitely a connected thing.
Absolutely. For me, I started exercising. I started doing this boot camp. It's not super intense, but I started doing this boot camp when I had to study for my boards because I would have to sit for like 6 hours a day and study for 6 months. That's the test that you have to take to become an acupuncturist.
Right.
And I couldn't sit unless I exercised like a little bit harder.
Okay.
And since I started exercising harder, I've become so much happier. And as I'm stronger physically, I'm stronger mentally to be able to deal with life, all of life, And of course, I knew that as a yogi and as an acupuncturist, but then to actually start doing it was such an aha. And, the fact that people will go into a doctor's office with the complaint of anxiety or depression, and the very first thing that the doctor doesn't say is, okay, I need you to work out. I need you to break a sweat 3-4 times a week and then come back and see me in 3 weeks. And if that doesn't work, like have some Prozac or whatever. But the fact that that's not happening is so befuddling to me.
You're absolutely right. And it's so funny too, because one of the main things that I tell my clients is you need to exercise. Cardio, at least 30 minutes, 4 times a week. Because
okay, we're on the same page.
Absolutely, because that is one of the best ways to become happier.
Yes, I think we're onto something.
Absolutely. Great. Okay. Can you tell me any interesting stories about how you've seen your work improve people's lives and make their health better?
Yeah, I mean, I've had so many different kinds of cases come in, but I I've had people, a lot of people with physical pain in the body, low back pain that is debilitating, and now they can totally function. I had one patient who has a pretty severe case of scoliosis, and she'll come in and say, I ate ibuprofen. I ate like 9 ibuprofens yesterday. It's like, oh my God. And then she like can't even stand up. She didn't even know, she could barely drive herself to the clinic.
Oh, no.
And we'll give her a treatment. And she left. She's like, I feel a little bit better. And then 2 days later, she's like, I feel amazing. I don't know what you did, but I'm back to like 100%.
That's incredible.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's such a gift, and just helping people with stress and anxiety. For me, the emotional and energetic component is so important. And if you're having low back pain with anxiety, I just don't think the low back pain is going to go away until the anxiety goes away.
Right.
And then, every now and again, I have somebody who comes in and I'm like, okay, it's going to take 4 to 6 treatments and then we reassess.
Okay.
And every now and again, somebody's like, oh yeah, you know what? The insomnia is totally gone after 1 treatment. I'm fine. And my energy level is perfect. I no longer wake up feeling foggy headed. I'm just like, so every now and again, I'm surprised at how well and how quickly the medicine works, but it always depends on the person and a case by case basis. So, but yeah, those are good moments for sure.
It must feel so good to be able to do that for people.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're in a helping profession too, right? Like,
yes.
And every single heart feels better when you're helping somebody else.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's a gift to other people, but it's also, as you know, being able to help people is a gift to yourself too. So, yeah, it's a nice upward spiral.
It's so true. Yeah, and when I see somebody who's really made improvements or had an incredible shift in their mental health, it makes me feel good in the world as well. So, absolutely, it's a mutual thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What are some things that you take into consideration when you're approaching a new case?
The 10,000 things, to borrow a phrase from the ancient Chinese texts. You basically start to evaluate a person the moment that they walk through the door, or sometimes even before.
Okay.
Some people send a long email when they are requesting an appointment. They're very thorough. They're thinking through these things. Some people fire off a text and I get back to them, and then a week later they get back to me. Mm-hmm. So even the way that people start to communicate gives me an idea. Somebody who's like all over the place, I start thinking liver wind. Somebody who takes a really, really long time, I think earth constitution, because earth constitutions are really stable and solid.
Okay.
But when somebody walks through the door as well, do they have like pink cheeks? Mm-hmm. Are they looking around? Are they looking down? Do they walk quickly, slowly? I have a lot of questions that I like to ask before I get started. So my initial assessment takes, it's a 90-minute appointment because we're talking for, maybe 45 minutes or so.
Okay.
I have a lot of questions that I need to ask. And I had one patient come in and I think I asked her about what's your nutrition intake like, or appetite or diet? And she was like, well, I like to eat oatmeal for breakfast, but you know what my son does? My son likes to take a piece of toast and he slathers a whole bunch of butter on it. And then he puts a little bit of honey on it too. And I know he likes his sugar, but I'm just thinking, geez, John, maybe you shouldn't be eating. And I'm like, on one hand, like I have more questions to get to, but on another hand, I'm getting a lot of information from the way that this person is answering this question alone.
Sure.
So then, in Chinese medicine, if somebody is just like, I start thinking heart fire, which is another thing that we treat. And that kind of person will often have insomnia or vivid dreams or anxiety or sweating. So, I look at everything. We look at the demeanor of the patient. We look at how the volume of their voice, the way that they sit in the chair, everything. If their phone goes off, how they respond to that. Oh my God, I'm so sorry my phone went off. Or let me get that. Or, just like, everything. We look at everything. And of course, after we ask our questions, we do, as you know, tongue. We look at the tongue for a lot of information. We take pulses for a lot of information. Oftentimes I'll do an abdominal palpation for information there too. So I look at everything, right? A really good practitioner will look at everything.
Okay. I always was curious, what information do you get from looking at my tongue?
So much information from the tongue. So we look at the color of the tongue. If it's more purpley, that's a stagnation, like a bruise, right? A bruise is like considered blood stagnation. So purple often will point towards blood stagnation. Red is heat. The tongue can be divided into anterior, middle, and posterior, like front, middle, and back thirds. So the front third is the upper part of the torso, heart and lungs. If it's red, that points towards heart heat or lung heat. The middle of the tongue is spleen and stomach, the digestive organs, while the sides of the tongue point towards liver and gallbladder. And the very back of the tongue points towards kidney and urinary bladder. So we look at the different parts of the tongue to show us these different organ systems. If the tongue is really puffy, that points towards spleen deficiency. The coating on the tongue, if there's no coat, that points towards a yin deficiency. If there's a really thick coat on the tongue, that points towards excess damp. If the tongue is quivering, that points towards liver wind. So, wow, a lot of information on the tongue. And then underneath the tongue, I don't look at underneath the tongue all the time, but underneath the tongue, you can see what we call sublingual veins. There's little purple veins under the tongue. And women who experience menstrual cramping will notice right before their period that those veins underneath the tongue get really dark purple and very swollen. Because purple, again, is stagnation. Stagnation is pain. You're getting, like, instead of the blood moving, it's cramping, right? So you can see all of that. And the tongue is such a cool thing for us because in Chinese medicine, we're interested in what's going on inside of the body. So that's why we're always asking questions like, what's your poop look like? And how much do you burp? And do you fart? And like all these things that people totally don't want to talk about, but we're so used to it. But the tongue is really cool because if you want to know what's going on inside of the body, look at what's coming out of the body.
Yes. And
the tongue is both an internal and an external organ. So it sort of bridges between and gives us a lot of information.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff as I was learning it, I was like, are you kidding me? But it's right on, It's so spot on that I would love to make an argument against Chinese medicine and say that it's hocus pocus, but it's so effective and it's still around after thousands of years. Right. So we can't really argue that.
You probably had to get as comfortable with asking people about their poop as I did having to get as comfortable about asking whether they were suicidal. And, yeah, I don't have any problem asking that question, but people are shocked. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But it's funny, hey, like once you start to get used to it, I'll be having dinner with a bunch of my acupuncture friends in the middle of dinner and just, talking about like diarrhea and like menstrual, just terrible off the table topics. And we're just eating, talking,
like it's nothing.
Yeah, like it's the weather.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. So how do you see acupuncture and Chinese medicine fitting into a well-rounded healthcare regimen and with Western medicine?
Yeah, awesome question. And I'm so happy that you're thinking about that. I would love everyone to be thinking about that, especially people who, have some say in setting up hospitals and Western medical care facilities.
Yes.
I am not a purist.
Okay.
I think if you have a really bad, debilitating headache and you've tried your lavender oil and your shower and your temple massage and your acupuncture and your herbs and nothing is working, like take some ibuprofen and be a normal person for a day. At the end of the day, I just don't want to see people suffering.
Yes.
And Western medicine can be very helpful for things that Chinese medicine is not good for. Like if you break your arm and your, compound fracture, your bone is sticking out of your arm, then don't come see me.
Yes.
If you have stage 4 cancer, I can help with the effects of chemotherapy and radiation, but at that point, I think it's best to go to the Western medical model.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I see some limitations in the Western medicine model in that they basically wait until it's too late to try to treat something. So it's always a Band-Aid kind of a treatment, or, we look at branch treatments and root treatments. Okay. Right. So you see a tree with some kind of fungus on the branch and you just cut off the branch.
Right.
Well, okay, that kind of works, but why did it happen in the first place? Don't we need to look at the soil, and don't we need to look at what the tree is taking in so that doesn't happen again?
Uh-huh.
So for the preventative side of it, obviously the acupuncture is best.
Okay.
If we're doing preventative medicine at the onset, at the beginning of your low back pain, you start seeing an acupuncturist and you start doing yoga and getting the corrective exercises, then, 10 years down the road, you're not that candidate for low back pain.
Right.
And I very much see them as integrated medicines. Integrated as in they braid together. Mm-hmm. So the hospitals in China have acupuncture in the hospitals. Wonderful. And people who get chemotherapy get the chemotherapy in one arm and they get Chinese herbs on the other arm so that they can reduce their nausea and their low energy. And it's very, very effective. But yes. I would love to see Chinese herbs administered intravenously in the hospitals here. Mm-hmm. And we are gaining some traction the more studies that they do and things that they can treat. Low back pain is a big one because so many people suffer from it and because Chinese medicine is so effective. But there are certain things like IBS that a lot of people suffer from. Yes. And because we don't talk about poop, people don't know about it.
Right.
But Western medicine is pretty clueless about what causes that. And in Chinese medicine, we have a theory for what causes it. It's liver overacting on spleen, and we know how to treat it very, very effectively. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of things that Chinese medicine, and I really don't like that term alternative medicine.
Okay.
It's like, this is the main number one thing, and this is the alternative. Uh-huh. So I like to say complementary medicine or an integrated medicine because that way we know that they can work together like yin and yang. But yeah, just to know that Chinese medicine and other modalities too can be really, really helpful for the Western medicine model.
So it sounds like you could really see them kind of meshing together, using the Chinese medicine maybe as a preventative, But then when things get really bad, then we can go to the Western medicine model, and then maybe we can use the Chinese medicine to kind of handle side effects of the things that are coming up with the Western medicine model.
Yes, exactly that. Exactly that.
Okay. That sounds
yes,
wonderful.
That's the world that I envision for the future. With my fingers crossed.
Yes. I love what you said about how in China they are doing the infusion of the chemo with the infusion of the Chinese herbs. I think that is beautiful.
I know. Yeah. It makes so much sense. And it's so helpful. I don't know if you know anyone who has undergone chemotherapy, but it really puts you through the ringer.
It's rough.
Yeah, it just looks awful.
Nice. Okay. How do you continue to learn in order to keep on top of the latest with your healing modality?
Well, you've taken my yoga classes, so you know that I'm a big nerd. And
I am too.
love learning, just rabbit hole after rabbit hole.
I think that's one of the things I love about your classes is you're always sharing some new thing you learned.
Thanks. Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. It's fun, and it's I think it's helpful for people too to be able to frame the world with an Eastern lens. So I have most recently, I just completed the coursework for this really amazing program called the Sports Medicine Acupuncture Program.
Okay.
Created by a San Diego acupuncturist by the name of Matt Callison, who in the acupuncture world is kind of a big deal.
Okay.
He is, he's such a wonderful man. As a human, he is just has so much integrity and warmth and caring about the people around him. But he is a genius. The man is an actual genius. The way that his mind has been able to put together the different pieces of the Chinese medical along with the Western anatomy puzzle is unprecedented in our medicine. He is, I wouldn't say redefining, but he's blazing a trail and defining a new portion of Chinese medicine that's very specific to anatomy. So he's kind of it's a little bit gross. He's like a cadaver guy. So he's dissected hundreds of cadavers, and he has done a lot of research and discovered a lot of what we call motor points. So each muscle has one portion that is the most electrically excitable, where there's the most nerve endings. If you can locate that point with the tip of your needle, it's like that part of the muscle has the most communication with the brain. So it has the best chance of resetting the muscle if you can find that. So he's done a lot of work on defining the motor points, but then also just really, really incredible things about, well, if you have this tightness at the occiput of your neck where your skull and your neck meet, you need to needle this point in the gluteal muscles. And it's insane. Some of the demonstrations that he has done in that class have blown me away and made me such a better practitioner. And every time I go, I feel like I'm drinking from a fire hose. I'm just like trying to get all this information.
Yes.
But even just grasping at little tiny pieces of what he has to offer has made my treatments so much more effective for the physical aspect of it. But he does a really beautiful job of keeping it in the frame of Chinese medicine too. So I think somebody was interviewing him in a podcast and they called him Meat Suit Matt. Ooh. And he's like, okay, yeah, you can say that, but he does a really beautiful job of like just showing the posture of a person and saying, okay, you think this person has spleen qi deficiency or liver qi stagnation or a kidney jing issue, and we talk about all of that to treat the patient holistically. So I've spent quite a bit of time and resources in this super valuable, worthwhile program for the last 2 years. And we've done cadaver labs and a lot of manual muscle testing. And this is one of the directions that I'm really interested in carving out for myself, because even though I am very interested in the spiritual aspect of yoga, meditation, Buddhism, acupuncture, at the end of the day, somebody will come see me with anxiety and insomnia, but at some point that person comes in, I hurt my knee, I hurt my back, you know? And just like the people who come in and they're like, no, I just need help with my elbow. After a few treatments, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so upset. I had a fight with my boyfriend and I can't even focus on what's in front of me. Can we work on that today? You know what I mean? So I like to have all of the tools.
Yes.
And this one's really, really helping me with the physical aspect of it. So we get a lot of training.
Yes.
We get a little bit of training at school, but this is like, it's comparable to the doctoral program. A lot of us think that anyway.
Okay.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What you said about the connection between the occipital and the glutes really resonated with me.
Yeah.
Because that's actually something I've experienced. So my injury was my neck, and they think that I irritated the occipital nerve or the scalp, which caused the illness that I went through. But the first symptom that I had was pain in my glutes.
How interesting!
Isn't that shocking?
Ding,
yes.
ding, 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 ding.
Yeah. And I could never figure out why that was the case.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I totally understand why, but he's tried it so many times, and so many times it's worked that, again, you just can't deny it.
Mm-hmm.
Even with a lot of Chinese medicine, you can't make sense as to why this point on your ankle helps with sleep. But if you try it that many times and it works that many times, then like, okay.
Just if it works, right?
Right.
That's what matters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Okay. What type of self-care do you do so that you can keep yourself emotionally and physically able to do your best work?
Well, Jennifer, I was joking with my cousin a couple months ago. That self-care is my middle name because I had 2 days off and I was going to see my talk therapist and getting a massage and getting a facial that day.
Nice.
And then I was getting acupuncture the next day. And she was like, self-care is your name, not your middle name, you know?
Your first name.
Uh-huh. I do everything to care for myself. So the boot camp that I do is definitely pretty awesome. I give myself acupuncture treatments. I take salt baths every now and again. I turn off my phone for a few hours. That's a really beautiful act of self-care.
Yes.
Yes, I get massages at least once a month, usually at least twice a month, actually.
Good.
Yeah, I've been doing mini facials since we started the quarantine, just here at home by myself. And my food is medicine, especially lately. I've had so much time to cook, staying in. I take a lot of supplements. I take collagen. I take B12. I've been putting Hoshu Wu in my coffee, which is for graying hair or for people who are balding. I'm not balding, but I've been cooking a lot of like food therapy. I recently learned how to make seaweed salad, pretty much like they make it at the Japanese restaurant.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I've noticed that as I have been giving myself permission to do more self-care,
Yes.
that my treatments have been better. I have been able to be more present, more loving, just more giving in my yoga classes and in my treatments. And I remember maybe like 10 years ago when I was teaching yoga and going to school and really burnt out, that I would put my students in pigeon pose.
Uh-huh.
And then I would go around and give adjustments. But really I was thinking, man, I'd really love to be in pigeon pose right now.
Yes.
And you don't want your yoga instructor thinking that.
Yes.
You want your yoga instructor thinking like, oh, it was so nice when I did this, and I feel so good, and I want my students to feel so good. So, as I have been allowing myself more self-care, I have been a much more compassionate and effective practitioner. And one of the things that I've been working on, so it's taken years for me to get to the point where I know that I deserve self-care and that I must take care of myself and keep my own cup full so that I can spill it out into the world around me.
Perfect. Yes.
Do you feel that way too? Like, how does that work for you?
I do, absolutely. I spend a lot of my time taking care of myself and telling the people that I work with that they need to do the same. I think it's the exact opposite of selfishness. If you are taking good care of yourself, then you have the emotional bandwidth to be there for others and take care of others.
Agreed. 100% agreed. Something that I'm working on right now, my next step, and I would love to know how this resonates with you too, is that what about me caring for myself because I'm worth it?
Yes.
Not because I need to serve others. Like, yes, that's a thing. But what about just knowing that I'm an important presence on this planet? That just having this sense of worthiness inside of me alone is enough to, like, what if you're not in a helping profession?
Right. Well, and
so I don't know.
Yeah, and I believe that all people are inherently worthy just because they're humans. And they don't have to do anything to earn it.
And it's so easy for us to think, yes, every other single human being in the world is worthy. Everyone is so precious. But when you turn that back towards yourself, am I worthy?
Yes.
Am I precious? Like, precious? It feels like, I don't know, like a little bit indulgent or not like conceited or self-centered. I don't know. There's some kind of like sticky discomfort there.
And I think that that's why people are afraid to take good care of themselves or to love themselves, because they think that it means they're conceited or stuck up or something like that. But I don't think that's the same. I think conceit and being stuck up come from a place of fear. I'm afraid that I'm unworthy, therefore I have to pretend.
Like a protection.
Yeah. But if you truly love yourself and you truly take good care of yourself, I think that comes from a place of just being whole. And the beauty of it is that when you love yourself and when you treat yourself with kindness and respect, that becomes the model for all of the other relationships in your life, and other people will treat you that way as well.
It's true. It's true. And I love your use of the word whole, like to know that we are whole.
Yes.
And when we feel that wholeness in ourselves, we give permission to other people to feel that wholeness as well.
Absolutely.
There's a story about the Dalai Lama, and he had been coming to this like science of mind meeting. It's a bunch of like neuroscientists, neurologists, I don't know, really smart people. It's like at MIT.
Yeah.
And they started to talk about self-esteem and how that leads to different issues. And he was like, hey, can we time out for a second? And he went back and forth with his translator for a while about the concept of self-esteem, because in the Tibetan language and the Tibetan way of thinking, they don't have a concept of self-esteem because every single life is a precious human life.
Yes.
Every single one. And so you could see he was really confused. And then he was like, well, how many, like, do a lot of people suffer from low self-esteem?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, yeah, this is a thing. And he was like, well, how many people in this room suffer from low self-esteem? And like everybody raised their hands. He was shocked.
Yes.
Like the concept of having a low self-esteem was shocking to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not conceited at all. He's like the most humble human being on the planet.
Such a sweet man.
Yeah. I like to simmer on that one.
I think that's that when I heard that once too, that he was just shocked at how many people don't love themselves. And I think that is actually kind of awakening, right? To think that, and somebody would be shocked about that, and that it's a foreign concept.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we see it as something that's so normal and kind of just common and normalized.
Yeah, it's nice to take a step back and see the things that are just ingrained. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like we're swimming in this water and it's, hold on a second.
Yep.
What about this water? You
Right.
know?
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if people want more information about acupuncture, Chinese medicine, what kind of resources would you suggest?
So there's a really good book called The Web That Has No Weaver.
Okay.
The Web That Has No Weaver by Ted Kapchuk. And that's supposed to be a really great resource for just dipping a toe into Chinese medicine philosophy.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions. I love talking about Chinese medicine and riffing on things. And it's actually a really nice challenge to try to be able to explain Chinese medicine, because as you've noticed, it's a different language.
Yes.
And so, you know, talking about the tongue, for example, we don't have enough time to talk about why a thick and swollen, tooth-marked tongue means spleen qi deficiency with damp, but I love talking about that kind of stuff. So if people want to contact me, you're more than welcome to. I would love that. I'm very open to that.
Great.
So my Recovering Gypsy is my thing. So that's me on Instagram, my Facebook. My email address is recoveringgypsy@gmail.com, and that's my website too. And there's a little form in there. I think it's for requesting an appointment, but you could just type something in there and be like, hey, I have a question about blah, 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 and I'll get back to you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And that answered my last question.
At Pilgrimage,
Yes.
I teach there. So, you know, I haven't seen you there for a while, but
I know. It's so sad it's closed right now.
I know. Have you done any of the Zooms?
I haven't yet, no. And I keep needing to, and I don't do them, but
I'm doing 10 a.m. on Sunday mornings.
Oh, are you?
That's a level 1. It's
Okay.
pretty close to the normal schedule.
okay.
So yeah, come and they're actually making that free for people or by donation. So
Nice.
Anyone's welcome to come and join, and all of the instructors there, as you know, are so fabulous.
Yes.
So
yes.
And that's a Zoom, right? So if you come a few minutes early or you want to stay a few minutes late and ask me questions, especially about stuff like this, I think that's nice, because I think a lot of people are interested in these kinds of questions.
Nice.
So
Yes. So for the listeners, in case you missed that, that's Pilgrimage of the Heart Yoga Studio in San Diego, which you can find online right now.
Yeah.
Because everything's closed because of COVID-19.
Have you been practicing, Jennifer? Are you seeing clients on Zoom or?
So I am mostly doing phone calls. I'm working from home right now and doing phone calls. I am doing a group 3 times a week by video, but everything else is phone. So,
Great.
yeah.
Okay, good. I'm glad you've been able to stay flexible and have some modicum of.
Yeah, and it's been good because it's interesting how people's reactions to this crisis have been all over the board. some people are like, oh, I think it's going to be fine. And some people are really, really freaking out and needing extra support. So I'm glad that I can be there for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Me too.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and having this interview. I think it was fascinating, and I can't wait to share the information with
Oh, it's fun
people.
to talk to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was
Thank
really
you
nice
for
to
such
see your
great
face
questions.
too.
I know.
Yes.
I miss you.
Miss you too. All right. Well, take good care of yourself, and I'm definitely going to tune in on Sunday morning and do your class.
Okay, good. I
Yeah.
can't wait to see you.
Awesome. Thanks so
All
much.
right. Have a great day.
You
Ciao,
too.
Bella.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for watching this week's I'm Sick Not Crazy podcast with myself, Jennifer James, MFT. Please remember that this podcast is educational in nature and that it's not intended to substitute for medical or psychological advice. To learn more about my work, to share podcast topic ideas, or to book me for speaking engagements or interviews, please visit my website at jenniferjames-author.com and choose the contact link. If you would like to support my work financially, you can find me at patreon.com/JenniferJamesMFT. Thank you, and remember that you can take control of your own health.